there is a certain kind of suffering that seems to be reserved only for those who have entered into a relationship with the living God. You can only feel the absence of God after having known what it feels like to be confident of God's presence. And it seems that no one who has known God is immune from those times when they have to wonder where God has gone. God has lost track of me. God doesn't care what happens to me. These words were spoken by the people of Israel during the time when they felt most abandoned by God. Their enemies had conquered them, and many of them had been carted off to live in a foreign land. While we may never experience the drastic dislocation that the Hebrew people did, we may still feel that God has lost track of us. Have you been there? Have you ever wondered if God was still around? And if God was, have you wondered why God didn't seem to care? It's a feeling of being worn down, being worn out, as if all our energy has been spent and will never be renewed. Perhaps the demands of our daily existence have gotten the better of us. No matter what we do, the ones we love the most seem dissatisfied. Our work, which once felt challenging and exciting, now feels dull and repetitive. We put in a long day and then we have places to be that night. Children's concerts, church meetings, a parent or a neighbor who we are caring for. We literally drag ourselves from one place to the next. Perhaps even harder, we often feel alone. We feel little joy. We question the very meaning of our commitments. These periods of life, they feel desolate. And we may have an emptiness inside that aches as clearly as hunger. For those with a relationship with God, these times can be especially hard because we can remember times when God filled that emptiness, when God supplied the missing meaning. Have you ever watched a large bird, an eagle, a vulture, a hawk, soaring up there on the updrafts, rising and falling without once beating its wings, rising so high that it almost disappears and becomes a dot in the sky? That is what it can feel like when you know you're riding on God's energy. When you are in the flow, when all you have to do in order to soar through your day is to make slight little adjustments with your wings. What counsel is there for those who can barely remember what it felt like to fly? Do Isaiah's words this morning have anything useful for us? Anything to teach us? I'm not sure. God's message doesn't sound too comforting. Have you not been paying attention? God asks. Have you not been listening? Don't you know anything? God goes on to say that I have laid out the stars and I know their names. Kings and princes don't matter to me. They don't impress me. You all look like ants from up here. I am always here, God says. I don't come and go. And I energize all those who wait on me. Rely on me and you will receive fresh strength. You will soar like eagles. I find it a bit easy to be overwhelmed by that text. It's not the gentle, reassuring approach that we might be hoping for when we're down, when we're feeling beaten. Now, I am the first person to suggest, as most of you know, that you go out and you seek renewal by admiring the grandeur of God's creation. Right now, tonight, you can go outside and you can observe the three brightest objects in the evening sky: the moon, Jupiter, and Venus. Right after sunset. Stay up later and you can catch Mars and Saturn. It's stately and it's majestic. And you can find me out there in the middle of Shiboni admiring the view. But I would be the first to confess that being reminded of the grandeur of God does not always lift my spirits. That same view can sometimes just make us feel small and forgotten and lost. When I wrestle with this issue, I really want to share this with you because it touched me deeply. When I wrestle with this issue of feeling abandoned, feeling alone, when I can't find the updraft, when my wings are working overtime, I recall some words of Mother Teresa. Now, these words were only made public a few years ago. They come from her private journals, from her correspondence. In them, we discover that one of the most visible and beloved saints of our time felt abandoned by God much of her life. The book is entitled, "Come, Be My Light." Those are the very words Teresa somehow heard Jesus speak to her when she felt that she was being led onto her life's true mission. Come, be my light, she heard. She felt God's presence in an extremely powerful way. It motivated her, it shaped her, it changed her. But then, through much of her life, she felt that that presence had abandoned her. In the midst of her work bringing love and light to thousands of people who were literally dying in the gutters of India, Teresa felt great doubt. Listen, in my soul, I feel just that terrible pain of loss, she said, of God not wanting me, of God not being God, of God not existing. She wrote the following words to another female professional religious person. She said, Jesus has a special love for you. But as for me, the silence and the emptiness is so great that I look and I do not see, I listen and I do not hear. The tongue moves in prayer but does not speak. I want you to pray for me. Pray that I let God have a free hand. It's as if she, Teresa, were actually answering God's voice as it speaks in Isaiah. God, I'm looking, but I don't see. God, I'm listening, but I do not hear. If you spend any time with the works and the lives of the greatest of the Christian saints, you will learn that they all had periods, sometimes very, very long periods, when they too felt this way. Because no one is immune. I share this with you because feeling this, it's part of being human. But not just that. It's part of being a person of faith. Sometimes it feels like there is no wind beneath our wings. I know many of us in South Church have felt this way. We have come through 2 really challenging years. And in order to live within our means, many, many people have pitched in and worked extremely hard. And now, even though we're still making progress, even though we're paying people to do some of that hard work, there is still so much to be done. It's natural to wonder if we have the strength to carry on. Now, there may be something useful in those words God spoke to the people, those people feeling abandoned. When I went back to the text with that question, what came to me is, maybe we aren't looking around. Maybe God's right. Maybe we aren't listening. Maybe we're missing something. Maybe we're missing something when we give in to our exhaustion, when we lower our heads, when we watch our feet shuffle through the day. I know how easy it is to get lost in the specifics and the details. Oh my gosh. The next spreadsheet, the next time water is going to find its way to our beloved South Church. It's easy to get lost there. And then there's also that other danger, that danger of starting to think that you're going it alone. That you're the only one carrying a heavy burden. And that is when we become self-absorbed. But then, maybe it's an updraft. I am given the grace to look up, to listen, and I find that I am part of a much, much bigger picture. I see again what has been around me all the time. One of those big pictures is that we have a great church here. A church that regularly attracts new faces and new members. We are a church that makes a real, measurable difference right here in this community. We are a church that stands for an inclusive version of the gospel. In a world where exclusion and rejection are still taking place in the name of God. Now look around you, and I'm seriously, not metaphorically, seriously, look around you right now. Look. None of us is alone. We are surrounded by people who are also giving their all to make this church possible. I think we need to take strength from one another's strength. I think we need to let ourselves be renewed by the examples of those around us who are motivated by the very same force that motivates us. We may not be feeling God's arms around us, or God's breath beneath us, but all around us, in every act of sacrifice and service, in every offering of energy and talent, in every prayer and every smile, there is God. Don't let yourself become so preoccupied and self-absorbed that you don't look up. You will miss so much. You might even miss the felt presence of God in your life. Perhaps we can only really feel God at work in our lives when we are at work in the lives of others. When we get outside ourselves. If God is found in the world as God promises, then we must engage our world and not merely be spectators and judges, sitting on the sidelines. None of us walks an easy path. And there will be times when we feel ourselves being lifted up by God. Thank God for those times. And there will be times when we are asked to just carry on. Mother Teresa on the streets of India, a single working mother cooking dinner for her children, taking care of parents who can't take care of themselves. Maybe you could take solace in the plain fact that you are not alone. You might try to look around your life and remind yourself of what you are living for and who you are living for. It is possible to trust that God is still there. It is possible to hope that you will again feel yourself being borne up as on the wings of eagles. You may find that reassurance. You may be more likely to find that reassurance in the people around you than in the stars in the sky or the words of Scripture. In the meantime, be sure to keep your head up. Look around. Pay attention. God is still at work, and you are not.